Good evening, everyone. It is your girl, Marcy Thomas, and I am really excited to be back with you for another episode of the BGC Book Club. So come on in the room. Come on in the room. We are about to be treated to something different from what we've ever done here in this space before. And I'm excited to have an author back that's been here several times, and you're going to recognize her face. Her hair is a little different. I did see her picture in the beginning intro, and I'm like, oh yes, her hair is different, but she's equally as beautiful as always. So we're going to have a return guest as well as someone who's here for the first time, who are affectionately known as the twins. So if this is your first time here, welcome to the BGC Book Club. This is a space where we really believe in celebrating Black women writers and books that are by, for, and about us. And tonight, I don't have the physical copies in front of me, but we are actually talking about the first two novellas in a series written by Suzette D. Harrison and Suzette Riddick. So let me tell you a little bit about these ladies as I bring them up. Now, Suzette D. Harrison is a native Californian and the middle of three daughters who grew up in a home where reading was required. Her literary career began in junior high school with the publishing of her poetry. When she writes, she pays homage to Alex Haley, Gloria Naylor, Alice Walker, Langston Hughes, and Toni Morrison, but she was really moved to write by the words of Dr. Maya Angelou. Now, when she writes, she does prefer happy endings, but loves creating flawed characters and storylines with intricate layers and depth, offering readers unexpected plot twists. So we're going to bring up first Suzette D. Harrison. So welcome back to the BGC Book Club, Suzette. Suzette D., or Peppa, as you will hear me calling her. You all will understand here in a moment.
Hi, good evening, Miss Marcy. It's a joy and a pleasure to be back with you.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you reached out to me to bring your twin to the room today. It's my first time having an opportunity to meet Suzette Riddick. Now, she is a wife, mother, and nurse practitioner who enjoys writing about imperfect people as well, finding perfect love. She is an Amazon best-selling author and was featured in USA Today for her book, Happy Ever After. She's a native of Philadelphia, or Philly, to those who know and love Philly, the city of brotherly love, and she loves to travel, read, and is addicted to Chanel parfums. I'd like to know a little bit about that. So welcome to the stage. Also, the other twin, Suzette Riddick, a.k.a. Salt. Oh, you're the Salt? Okay. I got it. We're going to flip it. All right, we got it. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here. It is indeed a pleasure to meet you. Peppa.
It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, yes, I am really excited about sharing this series with everyone, for those who may not have had a chance to read the novellas yet, because number one, it's just a unique way to put together a story. The fact that you all did it together. I mean, there's just so many things that I want to ask, and that we can start to get into that. So I guess first and foremost, how did the two Suzettes actually come to meet one another?
2000, I think it was 16. Twin, so we affectionately call each other Twin, as you already said. So Twin reached out to me in response to my first historical novel, which was Taffy, and just to share her feedback in response to it. And we just struck up our conversation, and it's been love ever since.
I was on vacation.
Okay.
And I was reading Taffy, and I remember my husband fell asleep, and I was up till like 3:00 in the morning reading Taffy, and I was like, I have to reach out to this author.
Yes, and the fact that you all share a name, I think that's pretty neat. Neat. So, of course, both of you ladies have been very busy and writing very powerful books on your own in your own genres. But what was it that made you decide to come together and do this Generations series, which is actually going to be a total of 10 books by the time we're all said and done? So what was it that made you decide that you wanted to do something together?
Well, through the years being friends and our friendship, and just being committed to each other, encouraging each other. We actually once a month, we tell each other lives on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. So, we just really have that bond and just, talk about things together, pray together. And in our talks, we just were one day saying, wouldn't it be awesome if we did a project together? And we literally, Marcy, talked about this project for how many years, twin? Like
3
3 years.
Wow.
I don't know, but something, just the timing was right. And we just said, you know what, we're going to do it. Like, we just committed, to doing it, and the projects that we were working on, because most of the times that was it. Either twin was working on a project or I was working on a project, and something would always, kind of be a roadblock. But we just decided, you know what, we're going to stop talking about it and we're going to do it.
All right. I love that.
Mhm.
So, okay, Salt. I got it in my head now. Salt. Okay, Salt. So, of course, we have seen instances where authors come together to create a work, whether it's, like a book of stories or sometimes just writing in tandem. What was it that made you decide to really basically do separate books, but have a story that is interwoven?
Yeah, so both Twin and I are very much about authenticity and being genuine in our writing. So we wanted to stay in our, I don't want to say comfort zone, but in our strong suit, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I gravitate towards African American historical fiction, and Twin's forte was, romance, Black romance. So if anyone stepped out of her comfort zone, it was Twin more so than I. But we wanted, again, to write in our strong spots, in our strong suits, and write from there the best books and stories that we could write, because we knew that this was a new venture for us. That in and of itself was enough. That was enough of an undertaking versus us trying to write, historic fantasy or something. That's
Right.
not what we do. So that's how we came to the realization that write what we do best. Let's write there. And so, and let me back up just a little bit, because when we first had the discussion, we, in all honesty, we're talking about doing 2 contemporary stories. Twin would write contemporary, I would write a contemporary. And the more we talked, I was like, wait, let me stay in my lane. I can do contemporary, but that's not my passion, that's not my spirit, blood, bone, and marrow, that
Right.
African American history. So then that opened up a broader discussion. Well, if I write historical, Twin, you write from the women's lit contemporary, how do we meld the 2 together? And that's where the generations started to come to pass. They're relatives, or they're connected through the small town of Colemanville.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So, Pepper, give us a little bit of insight of what the process was like to kind of figure out how to write the story. Because I have read both of the first 2 books there that are already out. The second 2 in this 10-part series will be out next month on November 12th. But in reading both, it's definitely really seamless. And I mean, I know that 2 separate people wrote it, and I could tell some differences in like what a contemporary book looks like versus what the historical fiction. I could tell it, but the story is written such a seamless way. So what was a little bit of you all's process just in figuring out how to write a story that just really feels seamless?
Well, originally what we would do is Twin and I, like she said, she loves history. We would actually talk about things that our, aunties or grandparents, things that happen in African American families. And we would take, bits and pieces of our background. And then, like I said, we would meet originally once a month, but then twice a month we would meet, and we would talk about different plot points and how they're to interweave the stories together from, the historical piece of the story and then the contemporary story. So it really, was a lot of detail sharing and just fleshing out ideas. And, Twin could come up, with the idea, and I would be like, oh, well, what about this? Or, vice versa with my story. Well, what about that? And, I'll say to her, oh, twin, I want to write this scene that, this is going on in the scene. And she would be able to take that and tie it in to her story in the past, or vice versa. Like, she would, come up with an idea of something that happened, during her time frame, the historical time. And then I would take that and incorporate it into, the contemporary story. So that's really how, readers see that seamless story, because like we, really put the work in. And then what we do once we're finished, like we'll swap books. Like I'll read her story, she'll read mine, just for, consistency's sake, and to make sure that the details are there, because, like she can't have a notebook that has flowers on it, her story that belongs to her character, and then, the granddaughter gets it and the book has stripes on it. So little, details, like that. Yeah.
May I also add to that, Miss Marcy? Just tactically speaking, we did things like a spreadsheet.
Got it.
Spreadsheet, and we plotted out, our different characters and their stories, and kind of like timeline. We also did Canva. We used document creator in Canva, and laid out our city, our town, pardon me, the different features of the town, the stores, the names of the streets, the different dignitaries in the town. So it wasn't just a cerebral thing. We had to be very tactical about it as well, constantly texting each other. Did she have this color dress on this time? No, it was this. It's constant contact with each other, making sure that what I write and what Twin writes, that they jive, they meld, they mesh, that there aren't any incongruities.
Yeah. Thanks, Twin. I totally forgot about that canvas spreadsheet. That's why we're twins. It's so helpful, because, I can always go back. Well, what was the name of the church again in the town? So it's, we really put the work in. We really put the work in.
And you did, ladies, because as I mentioned, I read the books. Excuse me, when I was looking at the reviews, it's like 5 stars, 5s all over the place. It's just really, both, it's a testament to your writing. Both of you are excellent writers, but then, as I said, just the seamlessness of the story for those people who choose to read both books, or who will continue in the series. So, tell us a little bit about what Generations is about, what the series is about, so people can have an idea. And then we'll get into some of the things in the individual books.
Absolutely. It's a celebration. If anything, it's a celebration of Black womanhood. It's a celebration of family. Our tagline is love, liberty, and legacy. So we're going to look at all those 3 aspects: love of, the Black woman, between the Black woman and the Black man, and the trials and the tribulations; legacy, the inheritance. It's not just the inheritance. When you read the book, you'll find out that legacy is actually a person, a being, the one who's responsible for the founders of Colemanville even being able to found Colemanville. And then, of course, liberty is not just, it's the independence of these Black women characters who are fighting in their own way, in various ways, for their liberty and for their rights and their independence. So it's a huge celebration. It's 5 African American historical novellas, meaning shorter stories. It's 5 contemporary Black women's literature. And again, I write the historical, Twin writes the contemporary, but the books mesh, they meld, they interconnect, they intertwine. For example, with book 1, my character Floretta is told in 1949, and Twin's character Jillian is told in contemporary context or times, but my character is her character's grandmother.
Yes.
So we get to their stories in their own respective times.
Mm-hmm. And I really love that. Just one last question before we get a little bit more into the books. You talked about world building, and I love that, because in this world that the 2 of you have created, it's oftentimes when we look at certain books, we think of people living in bigger cities or in certain communities. And I love the fact that you centered this book in a small town in North Carolina, and that there's history in that town. Peppa, how important was it for you to be able to do that and really show this thriving Black community in building your world?
It was very important for us because, Colemanville is something that we as a Black community had at one time, and we just wanted to revisit that, to show people, hopefully younger people, folks our age, they may remember, about the Tulsa, Oklahoma, towns and the Rosewoods and, things of that nature where Black folks had thriving towns. So we really wanted to showcase, that again and just, live in that world ourselves because, it to me, it's not that African Americans aren't thriving now, but, there was a time where they were solely, pretty much independent, on each other. And we just wanted to show that again, especially to the younger generation, to let them know that at one time, we did, have that for ourselves.
Yes. Okay. So salt. Yeah, we keep doing that. I see you smile every time I say it. That's when you have two people with the same name, you got to figure out a way to differentiate. So we're going to start with you because book one is yours, Forever Beautiful. So just for those who may not have had a chance to read the books yet, you set, your story sets the stage for what we're going to see, in the books that are coming. Behind that. So just give us a little bit, of course, that story is about, you already mentioned it's the grandmother who we see in the second book, but just tell us a little bit about the story and how you even came to like building this world and this town and things like that.
Yeah. So of course she's not a grandmother at the time that
Right.
Yeah, but I think that's important because sometimes we forget that our grandmothers had a life before they had us. We forget about the women who went before us, that they had to have some kind of romance. We wouldn't be here, by and large. But so it's a story of a 19-year-old young woman on the cusp of change, dire, drastic change. I'll just leave it there without giving away the story, but it opens on a tragedy that she's faced with, a family tragedy, and then how that propels her into decisions and choices that she has to make for herself. And she does, and remember, this is 1949. So it's more of a patriarchal kind of society that she's living in, even though it's an all Black township and it's, maybe more advanced in that regard, but it's still patriarchy that she has to face and that she has to encounter. And so here she is on the cusp of, adulthood. And all of a sudden now she's thrust into a fully adult role and even a maternal role for which she's not prepared or did not anticipate or expect. So her name, let me stop calling her. Her name is Floretta Eve Coleman Mercer. She has a hyphenated last name. So it's, her relationship with her father that is under great exploration under the microscope. The legacy that her mother left her, not just internally, but even as a businesswoman. Her mother, there's a business that she has to encounter. All of a sudden, she's thrust into parenthood with two younger brothers. And then again, the patriarchy that she has to fight against with her father and her grandfather. So she's taken on all these roles and she has to define herself. And then lo and behold, here comes this fine Black Seminole Indian that she has to contend with, who's, 7 years older than she is, and they're romantically interested in each other. So it's a venture through Floretta's life and all of the choices and decisions that she's confronted with.
Yes, and she has quite a life, and you're right. I'll just, you all got to read the story. That's always the whole point of us being here, is for you to read the stories. But, just looking at the different things that she goes through in her life. But I also love that in this world building, there is a backstory, because just the town in and of itself, the women of the town, how the town was founded. Please share a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so as I did kind of touch on it earlier, but to be more expansive, so Colemanville is named for Wyatt Coleman. He's the son of Liberty. Liberty was an enslaved woman who knew how to read, and that causes some problems. She ends up losing not losing, excuse me, all 12 of her, 11 of her 12 children are sold from her. And she has one child left, and she ends up sacrificing to save that one child. She's able to get that child and four other young boys, or three other young boys from that plantation on which they live. She's able to get them onto the Underground Railroad, and the boys are able to escape to freedom, but in the process, Liberty loses her life. And so with her son Wyatt, when he, after emancipation, and now that he's a grown man, he and those boys come back to that plantation that has been burned to the ground, to resurrect in honor of Liberty. They end up pulling their money together and buying that plot of land and that acreage, and then they're able to erect Colemanville. So it might sound like a lot of spoilers, but Liberty's story is not told in full in this book, and perhaps it will be later. So we're not really spoiling too much of anything. But they build Colemanville in honor and recognition of Liberty's sacrifices, and as a whole world is built, as he said, a whole world. They become an independent town. They're self-sufficient, even though they're right there in North Carolina, not far from Jacksonville, North Carolina, able to establish themselves. Not that it's easy, not that it's without challenge, but they're able to establish Colemanville.
Thank you for sharing that, because that gives us a good idea of what to expect in reading the book. And there are a whole lot of twists and turns, which, like I said, we're not going to get into all of those twists and turns, but it was definitely very interesting, because I know you for the history and the times we've talked before. That is your forte, and it's always good to learn Black history. And even though this may be a fictional town, as you've already stated, these were the sorts of things where Black people were able to purchase land and do certain things, or claim land and all that sort of thing. So I love it. So I want to switch over to your twin here for a moment, and let's talk about what the second book is about.
Okay, Wanda and Beauty is about Jillian Hart. As Twin said, she is the granddaughter of Floretta, and in my book, she's affectionately known as Nana Flo. Jillian's journey basically is one of a woman who's about to turn 40. She's a wife, she's a mother, and really hasn't explored who she is as a woman, because she gets married at a young age, right out of college, becomes a mother, stay-at-home wife, just never pursued her passion in life and what she wants to be, always putting herself on the back burner. When she comes to a point in her life where she wants to step into what her destiny is, which is tied to what her grandmother's profession was and her great grandmother's profession was. I don't want to give too much of the story away. But, that's her journey, really, at almost 40 years old, learning, who she is, and going after what her dreams and desires are. And as a result of it, she has a lot of turmoil in her marriage. She's not really liked by the in-laws, and she goes back to Colemanville to recenter and find herself. And Nana Flo is that beacon of hope for her. And when she gets there, she actually learns family secrets that she didn't know. And just her journey of stepping into and fulfilling her destiny. She goes back to Colemanville, and that's really where she thrives as a woman, and fulfills her dreams and her destinies, going back to the original homeland.
Right. And thank you both for sharing, just giving everybody a little insight into what Forever Beautiful and Wandering Beauty are about. Now, in both books, the women were just very strong characters, and I know that that's what we like to write, that's what we like to read, just to see women that even when they might find themselves in situations that might not be good, that there is a level of self-discovery that both women go through, figuring out who they are, what they want, sometimes saying no, sometimes saying yes, making hard decisions, making hard choices. And it's something that we all do as women, but it's just really good to see that in Black female characters. And I know, of course, that's the whole point. You stated that up front, that you want to tell this story. But what I also find really strong in the books is that whole thing. Well, a few things. It's family, it's honoring your ancestors, it's listening to your ancestors. Let's talk a little bit about that. So just the honoring of the ancestors, because that is something that plays throughout both books.
Absolutely. I remember as a young child liking to be around old folks. And, I was a picture with big ears, and I loved like sitting around my grandparents and my great uncles and aunts and just listening to the stories. So I'd always had this kind of innate appreciation for my elders and for ancestors, although, back then we didn't call them ancestors, they were just elders. But I give my mother a lot of credit for that, because I got that from her. I watched the way she moved with older people, at church. I grew up in church, Church of God in Christ, and you had to, honor your the church mother and the deacons and the elders, and they were venerable. There were people that deserved our honor and recognition. And I remember as a little girl just always running over and giving this one particular mother a kiss after church. But then when I got my tweens and teens, I started smelling myself. I was too big, to be running over there and giving mother so-and-so a kiss. And I remember she snatched me once. It's like, you too grown now? So she put me in my place real quick. And I never forgot that. It's like, you're never too old or too grown to give honor to those to whom honor is due. So that's a long story, but, by way of letting it just say how important that is to me. So I do bring that into my books because a lot of our ancestors' stories are just now being told in some regards, and being told by us, and not the colonizer, and not the academic and the person that's looking at them through, like I like to say, through like they're pheasants under glass. But this is us. We get to tell our stories through our lenses, and we get to honor the strength and the power and the vulnerabilities and the weaknesses of those that went before us. And we get to glean wisdom from them. It's really funny to read Nana Flo as Floretta in 1949 when she's 19 years old, but then I can pick Wandering Beauty and I can read in the hindsight, the wisdom, that she's able now to pass on to others. So Twin tells wonderful stories about, elders in her family. And I think it's important, especially the further we get and more in technology, et cetera, we forget sometimes. And we sight sometimes of the sacrifices and the things that we are able to do and to accomplish. And the fact that Twin and I can be on here talking to you, Miss Marcy, on this technology, somebody paid a price for that somewhere, somehow. So I never want to step away from knowing where I came from and knowing that I do stand on the shoulders of my fathers and my foremothers, and that I am able to do the things that they weren't able to do. Like Dr. Angela said, I am the dream. I am the realization of their dreams. When they couldn't write, I can now write. So I'm not just obligated, it's my honor to tell my ancestors' stories.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And Peppa, next to you. Of course, you're telling stories from the contemporary point of view, this particular set of stories. So how important was it for you to make sure that people are able to really learn from their elders? I know one set of books sets the stage, but sometimes people can forget, and maybe they don't honor those elders, or they don't want to know about, recipes for collard greens or whatever it is. They don't know things as having value. So how important is it for you from a contemporary perspective to make sure that we hold on to those things?
Yeah, for me, it's very important. Like Twin said, I feel like I've always gravitated towards older people. And, I feel like every book that I write, that I put a little piece of me in it. Because one thing, as a child growing up, I adored my grandmother. When other kids would be outside playing in the summertime, I would go and I would sit all day with my grandmother. We had our little ritual. We would watch the soaps. I literally would get up and walk down the
Which
street to my
one?
grandmom's. Huh?
Which ones? I'm just curious.
Well, we would watch God and Light,
Okay.
Young and the Restless.
Yes.
that whole channel. It was God and
Right.
Light.
Bold and Beautiful.
But
Search
yeah,
for Tomorrow back in the day.
Bold and Beautiful. God and Light and Young and the Restless. And we would watch the afternoon. We watched that, and weekends we watched the Jerry Lewis movies, Mom, Pa, Kettle. So, I would sit there and help her snap the peas, the string beans, and just like help her around her house and stuff like that. So I always gravitated towards, hanging with older people, even my aunties, like my dad, sisters. When I would go down south, I would, sit with them on the porch till like 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, talking with them. My auntie, she just turned 100 in November.
Oh, wow.
She'll be 101 this November. So,
Wow.
I just love old people. I just love old people, even as a nurse practitioner. Like I'll hug my little old I just love old people. I just do, and I just appreciate their wisdom, and just listen, to what they have to say. And I just feel like that's so important, important. And well, a thought just came to my mind. There's a scene in the book where Jillian is in the bedroom with her grandmother, talking to her grandmother. And I don't know if it's like something that writers do naturally, but with my mom, whenever we talked about something serious, it was always in her bedroom. It was kind of like, and I noticed in my books, that's like a scene where, monumental things happen. And I don't know, that just kind of, when you asked that question, it just kind of popped into my head.
Yes, I'm thinking bedrooms, kitchens, maybe sitting on the couch or on the front stoop getting your hair done, things like that. There are just certain things that really stand out in our communities, in our experiences as growing up. Young Black women, young Black girls, almost everybody has got a story of, or maybe the beauty salon or wherever, just these places where Black churches, knitting circles or whatever, places where Black women tend to congregate. And actually, that is a good segue to the question that's on the tip of my tongue. Of course, in this book, you have like founding fathers, but then you also have the daughters of the founding fathers. So tell us a little bit about those young ladies, or the dolls, as they're called.
Yeah, the dolls, Daughters of Light and Legacy, which, Twin and I both write female forward fiction. Of course, we have romantic elements. Of course, we'll have our heroes in there, but by and large, we're shining, and at least through this story, we're shining the spotlight on women. And so we think that is really interesting, although we have founding fathers. These books are focused on the daughters, as you said, the daughters, the granddaughters who carry on legacy in their own way, in the community service that they provide, the sisterhood and friendship and camaraderie and support that they provide for each other, then, networking, although we didn't use those terms back then, at least, the networking that they provide. And what's beautiful too is that we don't just see it in the historical novellas, but in Twins contemporaries, we see how friendship survives even through hard times, and how it's like it is a legacy that they've carried on, sisterhood and friendship down through the generations and through the years. We'll see that even in Twins books. These young women that are now the great granddaughters of the founding fathers, and how they still manage to stay connected and understand the importance of the legacy that they've been given.
Mm-hmm. And I love seeing that, because it makes me think of, especially maybe a little bit earlier, because the first book starts in 1949, but just thinking of in the 20s and, the earlier in the 20th century, where all these Black women's organizations were being founded, whether it is for the purpose of, philanthropic type efforts, even though they weren't calling it that, but, services in kind, feeding one another, making sure somebody had a place to lay their head at night, making sure people were clothed, all these sorts of things. And so I love that in these books that you do continue that, because oftentimes we hear these stories, or if you look at some of the stuff you might see on TV, you would think that Black women don't get along, or that they can't work together, even though we know that's far from the truth. And I mean, we know that's far from the truth, because we have too many long-standing institutions and things like that prove otherwise. But I do think it's always good to look back at the history of how maybe some of these things started to form.
Absolutely. Twin, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but Twin is a soror. So we have sororities, that are long-standing. So in a sense, I guess the dolls are kind of like a sorority. They're not a college academic related or affiliated organization, but in a sense, again, it's just that sisterhood. And like you said, Miss Marcy, it shows that yes, we can, and yes, we do. We're not all grabbing each other's wigs off and throwing wine in each other's faces and calling each other our names. Some of us actually like each other. Some of us actually towards each other. We're not getting off on our drama and being divas and and other things. So some of us know how to love each other.
Yeah, because I love my twin.
Right. And I do have to ask, because I'm in a sorority too. I'm a Sigma Gamma Rho. Do you mind saying which one you are?
Oh, actually, I'm not a Divine Nine. I am I'm in Chi Eta Phi. It is a nursing sorority that was established in 1932 for Black nurses, at a time when we weren't allowed to join organizations like the American Nurses Association. So actually, our founding jewel was the AKA.
Okay.
And she and 11 other nurses formed Chi Eta Phi sorority. So we're in all 50 states and in the Caribbean.
I love that, because I mean, that just shows, yes, there are, the quote unquote Divine Nine, but I love the fact that, you shared that there are other organizations of women that come together, and you can be in multiple ones, really.
That has a long history. I mean, 1932, that's
a long history.
That's a long time, and to, still be going strong. So
yes. Well, that's good. So of course we know that this is like the first set of books. Well, 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 will be coming out soon. Now, you already, kind of mentioned that as we go through this, are we going to continue to see the same family, or will we get to see some of the other founding families or families in the story?
We're going to see the other founding families. So yes, so the 5 books, they will feature the different descendants from the founding fathers. So yes, you'll get to see the other, women that are descendants from the men in the stories, the founding fathers.
Yeah, I love that, because okay, go ahead.
Sorry, you'll also have cameos from the previous characters as well. So you'll still, you'll still be able to catch up with your girlfriend from last book.
Yes.
Yes, because that is one of the things, of course, in reading the first 2, it's like, okay, Floretta, we leave at one spot and then we pick up, many years later. And I'm like, well, what happened in between? So yes, it'd be good to like kind of see some of the things that maybe we didn't see in these books and be able to get bits and pieces of other parts of her story, as well as the other people that we didn't learn about as much.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
So my question is, are all of the books done, or are you still in the writing process?
No.
Miss Marcy. You know, you live and learn. This was our first adventure, and that's something Twin and I talked about. We were a couple of weeks ago. I was like, we should have had all these books written before we tried this.
It's okay.
So they're works in progress, but book 3 and 4 are ready to roll. They'll be out November 12th.
Yes.
Yes, so I mean, I can imagine that it really is a process. So I wasn't saying that to be funny, but
No,
you know,
we know.
lives, you know, careers, families. You've got a bunch of other things going on. So I can imagine that, you know, each book is going to take some time. And when did you actually start the process of putting them together? I know you started talking about it, but when did you actually start like putting pen to paper?
Oh, wait, so the book came out in June. The first of the year, Twin, was it? Maybe like around February?
Oh wow.
Like February
That
of
was
2020.
fast.
Yeah.
And
And we
I
have
was
this
laughing at you. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Mm.
Twin. Go ahead.
we have this word count spreadsheet, and it's so good for both of us because every day when we write, we put our word count in, and I'll open it up and I'll see how much, how many words Twin has gotten done. I'm like, oh my God, like I have to write. It's really good because it kind of forces us like to write. I'm like, oh my God, she wrote 2,000 words today and I only wrote 500. Like, let me put this phone down and get off TikTok.
That's work.
And and vice versa. So it's kind of, I don't want to say it's competition, it's like more accountability.
Yes,
Yeah.
Accountability. You know, it's like, wait a minute, Twin, she wrote, like Twin said, she wrote, wait, and I'm like, I only wrote 50 words today. I better go back in this room and shut this door. So it's good accountability. But I was laughing at you earlier, Miss Marcy, not laughing at you, but it's just, funny to us because we just had that conversation about, oh my Lord, we should have wrote all these novellas before we published the first one. But because like you said, we both work. We both work 40 hours a week. We both have husbands. We have children. Twin has 2 little beautiful grandsons. So we have family. So, we don't have the luxury of just going in the room and shutting the door and writing for 8 hours straight. These are really labors of love. When I'm in the thick of it, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. Twin's going to work, being a nurse all day, coming home, writing till late at night. I'm like, to bed. Sometimes text her, go to bed,
Yes.
So, but it's all good. It's all good. This is our love and our passion.
Yes.
Yes, and it definitely shows in the work, and just having the two of you here together, the sisterhood, all of that stuff is showing. So it definitely resonates in reading the stories, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the next ones and the next ones and the next ones. Now, of course, with a novella, explain to people who might not know what the difference is between a novella and a novel, I guess.
Oh, okay. I'll take that one. A novella is usually a work that is about 40,000 words. It's not a full-length novel, but it's not like a short story. A short story, I believe, is like about 10,000 words is a short story. And then you have your novella, which is, can be up to like 45,000. Sometimes we can't keep it under that. We gotta get the story ends, and sometimes we might go to that 50,000 mark, but we really try to stay under that 50,000 word count mark. So yeah, it's not a full length story. Like most full length stories are like over like 60,000 words plus.
Okay. Yes, because I know someone had asked me that question, like, what's the difference, in the different types of books or stories? And I will say that they were good. I should say not easy, but it didn't take a long time to read them. Put it that way. I like to dive in and like, yes, going on my electronic devices reading, because both of the stories are very compelling, and and there are parts that I highlighted because I wanted to make sure I was keeping track of who the characters were and all that sort of thing. So you all did a really, really excellent job. And for those, as I've already said, if you haven't had a chance to read the books yet, Forever Beautiful or Wandering Beauty, please do. Please pick them up and read them, and make sure that you leave reviews. They are getting 5-star reviews. So obviously the story is resonating, or the stories are resonating with people as they are reading them, which is what you always want to see.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And getting back to the novella, that was intentional on our part, because we really wanted to, with, like Twin said, we're busy, we're working, we have husbands, children. We really wanted, to be able to get the stories out, because we're excited about this project and we just want to share with everyone. So us writing novellas was, it was intentional. So.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't
want to exhaust the reader. Yes, that makes sense.
Trying to read. Yeah.
That makes sense. But yes, the story's like, I'm ready for the next one. So I'm like, yeah, let's go.
It's coming.
Paula has a comment. Thanking all of us for a most enjoyable conversation. Really looking forward to reading the books. Please do. It's a great series, and I really do love, it's like you're getting that family epic, but it's broken in bits and pieces. So like you said, it's not something that is overwhelming to the reader, because you can take in a story here or there. Now that does bring up a question. Now, even though we know we have like book 1, book 2, 3 and 4 coming next month, do people really have to read them in order, or can they just kind of jump in where they get in where you fit in, or what do you suggest about that?
Well, it is a series and it is chronological, but we kind of feel like pick it up where you want to. But if you're a chronological kind of reader, you like to read in order, then of course it makes best sense to start at book 1. And it definitely makes best sense if you're reading in the set together, book 1 and 2 together, versus book 1 and book 8. They don't correspond to each other. So I think it's basically how the reader wants to approach it, how the reader likes to read. If it's chronological, go straight from 1 to 10. If it's just, I want to read a set about a particular character, or hey, you might not want to read my books. You may not like historical. You may want to read Twin's contemporaries. I'm good with that. Twin's still gonna shoot me down to ice cream or something, but she owes me nothing. She owes me nothing whatsoever. But I think the reader would get the most enjoyable experience by reading the sets together and reading in chronological order.
Yes. And what I think is really cool about my contemporary book, and I tried to be intentional about it, I put enough hints in where the reader would want to be like, oh, I got to go read the first book because I need to know what happened like back in the day. Like what is going on? So, hopefully, if a reader would choose to read contemporary first, there are little clues in there. It's just enough to pique their interest where they would want to go back and read the historical.
Yes. And one thing I do have to say, okay, go ahead.
I believe one reader said that there was one reader, I won't call her name, but she read book 2 first because she's more his contemporary. And then, just like Twin said, it piqued her interest. And then she went back and read book 1. So that's really what the reader wants.
Right. And I was going to say, for those who want, in reading the contemporary, I definitely can tell the difference in some of the storytelling, because of course, whatever romance or love things in the historical fiction, in the historical part, so it's a lot more, what should I say, innuendo, whatever, the case may be, about things that may be going on. Whereas Peppa is like, it's more peppery. Yeah, I mean, not extremely, not to the point where you're like, oh my, no clutching of pearls.
I know Twin always tease me. She's something nasty. Twin.
There always has to be one. I'm just saying.
But you might see a little something different in books 3 and 4. That's all I'm gonna say right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, my twin had me clutching my pearls. I was like, oh my.
Okay, so pearl clutching. It is all good. I love to clutch my pearls from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
We grow.
Yeah, that was one of the that was something that I did notice. So even though, like I said, the stories are seamless, characters are seamless, I didn't feel like, well, wait, in reading book 2, I didn't feel like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't match book 1. I didn't feel that, but that is the one area where I could tell like there is a difference in writing styles. But then,
well, I'm a romantic at heart, and even though it's fiction, I'm a romantic at heart, so I have to. All my books, this is my spoiler. All my books are going to have romance in them, even though, it is female driven. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And so many books do cross genre anyway. So, I mean, that is perfectly okay. I was okay with it. Absolutely. So, of course, you all are still in the process of, going around the world or virtually and things like that, talking about these 2 stories in generations. And we know that it's going to continue. So I know this is the first time doing something like this. With this experience, this is something that you think you will continue to do as twins, or maybe do something where you're actually writing, within one book or whatever. Or what are your thoughts about continuing to work together?
Yeah, that's a really good. Go ahead, Twin.
Go ahead, Twin.
But no, we have talked about that. Even there's some characters even within this generations that are of interest that we kind of tossed around a little bit. Maybe writing their stories. So I'll speak for myself. I would absolutely be open to further collaborations with my twin, but we also do respect each other's, our own titles, our own catalog and our own individual pursuits that are also important to us. So we never want to overtake each other and make it something that is demanding, high, stress, and it's out of control, and it's overtaking our own individual interests as writers. So there always has to be a balance, and there always has to be time. Even twins, we both have sacrificed some things to make this series happen. Twin has her own stories that she's still working on and that are kind of like tabled and paused. I'm also still with a traditional publisher. I'm a hybrid author. I do these my indie projects, but I also have contracts that I have to a contract that I have to fulfill. So, but to answer the quick, short, and dirty answer is absolutely from my point of view, because Generations has just been so beautiful in the process. And I don't know if the readers enjoy it as much as we enjoy working together. And we pray that they do, that the readers, that you feel the love, sense the love, read the love. So for me, it's a yes, ma'am.
Same here. I echo everything my twin just said.
Yes. So, of course, and I'm not going to get into other projects because this is the project that we're doing now. But just to be aware, for those of you who enjoy the individual projects, know that those are going to continue to come. Like, God bless you if you're doing them all right at the same time. But yes, that is something. Because, in full disclosure, as I mentioned, I read both of your books over the weekend, but I also read a third book over the weekend because I'm in my sorority. We have like our own book club, and normally I don't go because I'm preparing for other things, but this time I said that I would. So just in me reading like 3 different books in a space of 3 days, it's like trying to keep all that stuff in my head so I can, and keeping them separate. So I can imagine if you are working on multiple projects that sometimes that would be a challenge, but it seems like you've overcome that by having this outline and kind of working together.
Yes.
Short and sweet, yes.
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 It's a labor of love.
Yes. Yes. Well, again, ladies, I am so glad to have you here. For everyone who's watching live or, is going to catch this in a replay, please go ahead and get both of these books. I'm going to take this banner down right quick so you can see their names, see who's who. So, when you pick them up, you know who you're reading. So we see Harrison, and her title is Forever Beautiful. And then we have Suzette Riddick. Her title is Wandering Beauty. And both of these wonderful books are from the Generations novella series. So again, ladies, I appreciate you being here. It's such an honor. As always, I say my buddy, I'm going to call her Salt. We've talked multiple times and, formed this nice connection. So it is good to have, get to meet your twin and Suzette, hope to have you back again and again, whether it's for works that you are doing separately or works that you are doing together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I would definitely love to come back. I appreciate you. Thank you for all you do.
Yes, thank you. Welcome. You're welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Now, with that being said, I know you all are on two separate coasts. Do you have any events that you are actually doing together that are in person, or are we sticking in the virtual space because of being in two different worlds, so to speak?
Yes. So we want to do something virtually, as well as we got a little something hopefully up our sleeve, or even, in person. So yeah, I'm on the West Coast, and Twins on the East Coast, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle, make it happen. But absolutely, connecting with our readers is like one of the joys, one of the highlights of being an author.
Yes. And everyone, in case you didn't already catch it, their information is at the bottom. There could potentially be a lot of information. So it's basically the IG and the website. So if you all can follow them there, get on their mailing list, all those sorts of things, you can keep up with all the wonderful events, new books, new projects, just wonderful things that they're doing out there. So ladies, again, I thank you so much for being here to talk about the Generations novella series. Be on the lookout for books 3 and 4 coming next month on November 12th. Oh, what are the titles of those two books that are forthcoming?
Ooh, you get it first and live. Go ahead, twin, give it.
The title of my book is Graceful Watercolors.
Graceful Watercolors. Okay.
And mine is Watercolor Whispers. And all the titles refer back to our women and their careers or their interests. Readers will see that the connection between the titles and these women and their pursuits in life. Okay.
So since I've read the books, I think I already know who that's going to be. I'll ask y'all when we come off. So again, ladies, thank you so much. I'm going to allow you to get some water, whatever you need to do, but don't hang up just yet so I can come and say goodnight. But thank you again. Thank you to everyone watching. Please share it out. Please pick up copies of these books and enjoy. So thanks again. And you ladies have a good evening. I'll see you here momentarily.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here for this wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed talking to both Suzettes, the twins, Salt and Pepper, however you want to refer to them. It was definitely an honor for me to have both of them here and to do something a little different, because you don't see a lot of writers who are doing these books in this way. So it was indeed an honor, a pleasure, and I do look forward to any other works that they do, both individually as well as collectively, because it's all about wonderful and powerful stories by, for, and about us. So I look forward to seeing you again next week. I will share the book out here within the next day or so as to who our next week's guest will be, but it's also going to be a return visitor. I'll just tell you that much for right now. And I'm really excited to have another conversation about her latest work as well. So to everyone, thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.